Welcome to Realizing Real Estate. Each week we will be issuing a new edition, an interview with an investor, developer, business leader, government official, scholars, and others, all who in some way impact the world of real estate and the quality of your investment. Real estate has many facets. We will explore many of them in these brief podcasts. Every one of our guests will be interviewed in greater depth and length on our weekly radio show, Our House, which is broadcast every Saturday at 9 a.m. on WBN 9:30 a.m. and 98.5 FM HD3 in the Buffalo Niagara Marketplace, but is accessible anywhere in the world on the Odyssey app or at WBN.com. All of Realizing Real Estate podcasts are available at the iTunes Store, and our House radio shows are archived on our blog at huntrealestate.com. Join us every week and give us your feedback and suggestions for future topics, also at huntrealestate.com. Welcome to Realizing Real Estate. This is Peter Hunt, and this is the next in our series of podcasts that hopefully will inform you about lots of things relative to real estate and also helping you to protect and enhance your investment in real estate, which is the mission of all of our programming. And live with me today is David Colligan, an attorney and a member of the Wilson Foundation Board of Trustees. Good morning, David.
How are you doing, Peter?
I'm well, thank you. It's good to have you here. David, for the sake of our listeners, give us a little background on David Colligan and how did you get to, for example, in your profession and also your position with the foundation?
Well, Peter, I think I would start out by describing my progression through my profession of law as being interested in keeping my options open on doing community service in whatever job I found. And it's probably not apparent to most people, but when I graduated from law school in the 1970s, the billable hour accounting for lawyers was just coming into play, and the big firms, which were growing rapidly at the time, were trying to find people that would put the most number of billable hours into their work, and that way they could pay them more, and it made it very uncompetitive for some law firms to compete with the big firms because of the billable hour requirements. I decided I didn't want to be in that community because I didn't see where I could work in the community and try to meet the billable hour requirements, because some people were working till midnight every night, and I didn't think I could do that if I wanted to join not-for-profit boards. So
or raise a family or something.
Or raise a family.
Mundane like that.
Something mundane. And so I decided as a conscious choice not to do that. But what I didn't realize was that I was replacing people that a lot of them were at big firms before me, generation before me, okay, that every big firm had somebody in the community joining boards, working with the community and doing things like that. And I somehow ended up replacing them, and I was working for a 4-person law firm. And one of my friends in Boston said, you'd never get to be chairman of as many boards if you were in Boston because you're a nobody. And that's basically what my role in Buffalo was I wasn't really well known, and I was doing these things, but it was just because I was putting the time in, and some people thought I was doing a good job. So that's part of my background in law. Was I combined practice of law with community service, and I made it a goal of mine along the way. As far as the kind of community service I'm in, I'm going to warn you, Peter, if you ever learn anything about trees, don't tell anybody. Because I started a tree program in Buffalo called Reforest Buffalo. It was the precursor to Retree Western New York. That occurred 7 years after I started the other Reforest Buffalo. And we melded the two together because they had the same goals, which was when we started, it was to reforest the city of Buffalo, but then it became replace the trees from the 2013 storm. But I was about 7 years ahead of that with the Reforest Buffalo effort. So what happened is people who saw me working on Reforest Buffalo said, well, wouldn't it be nice if, the Olmsted Parks, for instance, wouldn't it be nice if we had a board member who knew more about trees? So they said, would you serve on the Olmsted board? And that was quite an honor to be asked to serve on the Olmsted board, and I agreed to do it. But it's interesting that they wouldn't have asked me in my role as an unknown, because I wasn't able to be a big contributor or something like that. It was mostly my knowledge about trees that got me that award. And then along the way, one thing led to another, including going on the waterfront board. I was on the Erie Canal Harbor Development Board for a decade. That probably had something to do with me knowing about trees, because there are a lot of trees on the waterfront right now, and some people think I had something to do with that. So, it's just each step along the way in my community service. And when the Wilson Foundation was looking for somebody in Western New York, one of their components is parks and trails and active lifestyles. And my background with parks, waterfront, and trees fit right into that. So they asked me to be a trustee. So it's kind of just dumb luck for me that along the way, my initial interest in trees has led to a sort of a developed community service concept, as well as supporting my law practice.
You touch on a couple things that I want to have you elaborate on. And this is my opinion anyway, is that one of the great things about our community is that you don't have to be president of the bank or something like that to be able to contribute, to participate on a board, for example, that we seem to dig deeper into our community than the big communities in New York or Boston or something like that, to find people that are talented and willing to do something to really help our community. I think it's a great attribute. And the other thing that you allude to is the access that we have here, the enormous access we have to natural resources that simply isn't the case in many other cities. We have one of the great rivers in the world, the Niagara River, both Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, right on our doorstep here in Western New York. How do you, and now the park that you're involved, let's talk about the park for a second, and then I want you to kind of pull that together to give your opinion about how we leverage all this as we go down the road in this community.
Well, Peter, first of all, on the park that we're working on, it's for Buffalonians now that are here. Okay, it's not designed to be an attractant for 20 years from now. It could become one, but it's not why we're building it right now. We're building it so that the people on the west side of Buffalo can walk to a park and enjoy the things you do in the park. And I've seen a lot of park usage in Buffalo on the waterfront from immigrants and from people that don't have the resources to take trips to Aspen and Colorado and all these other places, but they're having just as good a time down at the local park. And by putting that bridge across the Niagara River that everybody got to see go in, I think will actually open up the new park to people who have been disenfranchised from the natural resources and park usage here in Buffalo, only because of the neighborhood they live in. And that's who we're building it for. And if those people end up having a good time there, that's good enough for me.
So you're creating, like I mentioned earlier, you're creating access to the natural resources. The lake itself, the mouth of the river, right where it is, can they actually get to the water itself? Or that's got to be an issue.
Well, it's very interesting that you focus on that, Peter, because you did mention earlier that it's at the confluence of the Niagara River and Lake Erie. So Lake Erie is literally draining into the Niagara River right there, okay? We've created a waterside attraction by putting a bayou in right there. There's going to be a lower walk, which will probably be flooded on some days, but not most. When the water is at the proper level, the normal level, you should be able to walk around the lagoon that we're putting in, see wild plants. It's supposed to be a great fish breeding area. The fish will be coming in and out from Lake Erie. I wouldn't be surprised if there's fishermen down there every day of the year. And it's going to be real interactive with one of the great natural resource opportunities in the country, in the world, okay? Because these are Great Lakes. There are only 5 Great Lakes in the world. There's only one major Niagara River. It's a powerful river. If you don't believe me, go to Niagara Falls and look at it fall over a waterfall. So
Go to the power plant.
Or the power plant.
It's amazing, frightening, really, kind of.
Well, it's
the power that's there.
It's very interesting, the volume of water going over the falls. It's unmatched almost. So
let me interrupt you just for a second. What you described, that lagoon, is a very Frederick Olmsted feature. As you probably know, he designed a similar situation in Jackson Park in the 1893 World's Fair that was in Chicago at the time. And he fought with it was an amazing structure, but that lagoon became one of the great areas of focus in that whole fair.
I was unfamiliar with that. I've been to Jackson Park because I knew it was an Olmsted Park. I can tell you right now, it's not been maintained.
No, it's terrible. But the fact of life is there was a point in time when that was the focus of the world, and it was Olmsted died shortly thereafter, if you recall his history. But part of that was it almost killed him.
Right. It was 1890.
1893 was the.
1893 was and that's about the year he died. But he
died a couple of years later. But he was in terrible health.
Right. But I wasn't aware of a lagoon there, Peter. That's
amazing.
I'll look into that because I am a little bit of an Olmsted aficionado, and I thought I read all his combined works.
There's a great book by Eric Larson that's a detailed history of that whole experience. You should get it.
Okay, I might do that. So you're seeing my point, though, which is when you bring the focus down to the water level from, of natural resources and what we're blessed with natural resources, it's going to open up the imagination of a lot of people on what we're really talking about here, because Lake Erie is 9,900 square miles. Niagara Falls, without the draw-off for the power plants, is about 256,000 cubic feet per second or something like that. It's like volumes that don't exist anywhere else with a waterfall. Nowhere in the world do they exist. So we have that right here, and people are going to go down and go waterside and have an experience that might have might shape their perception of living in Buffalo.
And certainly right at the falls, there's another Olmsted Park. So it's an amazing collection that we're developing, and certainly the Ralph C. Wilson Park is going to be another jewel in that crown that we have here. Unfortunately, we've got to go. But I really, truly appreciate you adding your insights. And for those of you who'd like to learn more, go to huntrealestate.com, go to our blog, go to the iTunes store, and listen to the Our House Radio Show with David Colligan as my guest. You'll hear a lot more. I'd like to thank you again, David, for being with us.
You're welcome, Peter, and thanks for having me.
My pleasure. And I'd like to thank our listeners and viewers, and we'll be back in next week with another episode of Realizing Real Estate.